too much attention to the person that actually sent them in the first place.
Oh, I agree with you, and I made clear in my interview with Brianna Wu that when it comes to specific threats against me, that's been something I've done as well. But my question's a little bit of a different one, which is, if we want to address or have a real conversation about whether one side or the other has elements of sexism, for example, we can't even really have that conversation, I find, or I've been unable to, because very quickly the individual I'm speaking to will say, if you've seen what appears to be sexism from our side, those weren't really people that are on our side.
It's the real problem with a leaderless hashtag movement that has zero entry requirements, doesn't it? And
yeah.
It's also a problem on the other side because those have claimed it is anti-Gamergate. But anti-Gamergate isn't really anything, unless you are taking part in a hashtag like, say, Stop Gamergate 2014, which didn't go anywhere. Then all you're really saying at that point is that there's some organized other side, and there clearly isn't. And more to the point, I would say that even Gamergate itself is not a side. There is so much disagreement within it.
No, and it seems that there are these two sides within Gamergate, right? The one that says
I'd say there are more than that, frankly.
Well, at least the two big narratives seem to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gamergate is about journalistic ethics, or Gamergate is about misogyny and racism within games.
I wouldn't say that those are the only facets of it. There are those that believe in the notion of social Marxism and the infiltration of progressive radical social justice ideas into gaming media and gaming journalism, and some people object to that. Some people do not object to it. There are people in it solely because they feel alienated by the games media that they trusted for so long, and that really boils down to the Gamers Are Dead articles that were released. There are people in it solely for that reason. And yes, I do believe there are some people, a minority, but some people that are in it to cause trouble. Now, whether or not they are trolls, whether or not they are actual misogynists that really believe that the presence of women in this industry is somehow a threat, it's very hard to quantify that. I think the only way to get past it is to focus on those that wish to discuss constructive issues and wish to make this industry better, and freeze out those that do not.
Okay, so that sets a little bit of the context as to the difficulties with having a real substantive discussion about that. Let's talk a little bit about the journalistic ethics issue. Yesterday, I interviewed Jenny Barrage, and in speaking to her about the changes that some publications have made editorially, at least at face value with regard to editorial policy, her reaction was, well, we also want to hear an apology, and we need to wait and see whether the changes on paper to policy translate into actual changes in practice. To get us started, where are you on this issue of policy at these publications?
Policy varies on a publication-by-publication basis. There are some publications that do not believe they need an ethics policy. Yesterday, I interviewed the editor-in-chief of Kotaku, Stephen Totilo. We had a 2-hour conversation on various allegations that had been leveled towards his publication. I asked him to answer those questions. Now, he does not believe that they need an ethics policy, and he believes that instituting one would simply be an opportunity for people to say gotcha at particular moments and to rifle through his site's history, which is a valid concern. I don't have an ethics policy written either, but I'm also very clear when I create videos and especially advertorial content as to my level of disclosure and what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. The Escapist has an ethics policy and revised it recently. Polygon has an ethics policy and revised it recently.
Right.
But Jenny was correct in saying that it's all well and good to do so, and I think that's a very positive step forward, and it also does a good job to prove that actually even early on this thing definitely was about ethics to some degree. But we need to see how they implement that. And then there is a great deal of disagreement going forward from people as to what these sites should be doing. Some people believe that Polygon, which has self-identified as a progressive site now in a recent letter from their editor-in-chief, should not be injecting gender politics into reviews. Some people believe that that is okay. Some people believe that the problem is merely the scoring system that they use, and that the removal of the score and aggregation on Metacritic would allow them to espouse these perhaps more niche views without worrying too much about whether or not the score is going to impact things like developer bonuses or drag down attention online.
Well, let's pause there if we can, because I think this is an interesting thing. Sure. Would you agree? I see it from my point of view. I see two very different issues that you've presented there. On the one hand, there's this issue of disclosure in terms of what money has changed hands, what promises have been made, and what are the relationships between the reviewer and other interested parties. That's one issue.
Yes.
A very separate issue is the, quote, injection of gender politics, which, as I see it, people can agree or disagree with that. People can have a view that is sympathetic to those issues within gaming or not. But really, that's not an issue of ethics, I believe, because a publication, my program is an opinion program. It is a progressive program, and it is certainly my view. Someone can choose not to watch my show because they don't want to hear that point of view, but to say that ethically there's anything wrong with having a point of view, I totally disagree with.
Yes, I disagree with that in principle as well. I think it's perhaps a little more complicated than merely saying we don't want gender politics or